So about 24 hours ago at the time of recording this video, I went with my siblings to go see Marvel's Thunderbolts, and it was really, really good. As a matter of fact, it was so good that I had to kind of like really think on whether or not I actually enjoyed this movie, or maybe it was just kind of good, but because of how much shit we've had in the MCU since the, the finishing of Endgame, with exceptions like, TV shows like Loki and like the first half of WandaVision, of course. But I was wondering if maybe the movie was just sort of good, but because everything prior to it has been so shitty, that this seemed like some incredible film to me. So I wanted to sit on this video for a little bit. I didn't want to write a script for it because I personally think reviews are better when they're off the cuff, such as like my Sinners review. And with Thunderbolts, I actually wanted to go and see it a second time before I gave an opinion on it. So I did. About 4 hours ago, I finished seeing Thunderbolts for the second time, and it solidified my first impressions. There's a couple of nitpicks that I do have in it. There's a couple things in there that hesitate from me saying we are so back, but we kind of are back. So I said it in my Brave New World review that there was elements of Brave New World that I actually did sort of enjoy. I thought that the emotional core of the film felt like it was sincere, and I felt like some of the pacing felt really solid with the action sequences, but by and large the film was very mediocre. And I encourage people really not to go see it in theaters because it really wasn't that great. However, with Thunderbolts, I feel the need to go see this in theaters is very, very high, because what this movie does is pretty special even by like just MCU standards. I want to get one thing off the bat here. I am going to spoil a couple of things. I'm going to try my best to keep it tight-lipped because I think this movie is very solid and you should really go see it in theaters. Let me get that out of the way as a spoiler alert, because the marketing for this movie gave you no impression of what you were actually getting into.
Okay, that was really good.
We are the Thunderbolts!
Can't call ourselves that.
God, thank you. This has makings of team that can rise to glory.
I remember telling this to my siblings and to a couple of my friends when the first trailer for Thunderbolts dropped, that I was like, oh, that was kind of a fun trailer with like the, we can build this thing together song in the background. And I was like, oh, that was kind of fun. But then like, I looked up the writers and directors and then the cinematographer and the editors and all that. And I was like, that doesn't seem like the kind of trailer that they would make unless it was misdirection. And I was correct. Every marketing material for this movie was misdirection. The sort of peppy, upbeat, like, oh, hey, absolute cinema meme, ha 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 ha, funny song, pop song, flashing lights, funny comedic moments. That's not really what this movie is like. And that's really the first big pro I want to get out of the way. The characters in this film are really, really excellent and really well developed. So first off, every single ancillary character really actually gets their time to shine. John Walker is excellent. You get to actually see a little bit of his backstory and a little bit, well, his backstory in the sense of what's occurred between the end of Falcon Winter Soldier and this movie. He sort of brings this more bravado heavy, like kind of angry vibe to the team. And he sells it. Wyatt Russell's extremely good at what he does, and he was the highlight of the Falcon Winter Soldier show, and I'm very glad they gave him more to do in this film because he gets a lot of lines, he gets a lot of awesome backstory, he gets a lot of emotion, he gets a lot of really solid action sequences, and you really do actually kind of care for him by the end. You don't really feel on his side entirely, but you feel for him. Same thing with Ghost from, for those of you who've seen the Ant-Man and the Wasp movie, you already kind of know a bit of her backstory, and yeah, you get like a little bit of an exposition dump, like kind of 25-30 minutes into the film. But I mean, she's given a little bit more to work with here, but I would say of the core cast, she's probably the weakest. Definitely not like poorly written, and she has some good moments, but she's definitely the weakest of them. Red Guardian finally gets to redeem himself from, being the only good character in the Black Widow movie.
Lot of work. Many irons in fire.
You feel fulfilled?
Oh, yeah.
And David Harbour is just wonderfully charismatic. Once again, he gets some really, really good moments in this film, and he gets some really, really genuinely funny moments as well. And I'll get to the comedy here in a minute, because I know there's an underlying theme of like, oh ho ho, MCU humor, better watch out. We'll get to that here in a minute. There's one scene in particular between Red Guardian and Yelena in the movie that is really, really heartfelt and really, really touching. There's two moments actually in particular. I'll get to the first moment. Well, I'll get to both these moments later on, because they kind of have more to do with like the grander reason why I like this movie so much. And of course, we have the star attractions of the show, Yelena Belova, aka Florence Pugh, and Lewis Pullman, aka the Sentry, aka Bob. Both of them turn in fantastic performances. I don't just mean fantastic performances by MCU standards. I don't just mean fantastic performance by comic book standards. I mean fantastic performances by film standards, by acting standards. Lewis Pullman sells this great characterization, this mixture of like schizophrenia and depression and, you know, this sort of like delusions of like being a better person and, you know, kind of having this really like, it's very stuffed deep down, but he has this really big ego.
You thought you were gonna be some great savior? You can't even save yourself.
And Lewis Pullman does a great job like flitting his character between these moments of, you know, self-doubt and these moments of self-pity to these moments of like, oh, I am better than you. Why am I even listening to you? He does it so well. And I loved him in Top Gun Maverick. He was fun. He's on a different level in this movie. I'm not going to say he's like the best villain we've ever seen. I'm not going to say he's like the best character we've ever seen. He's up there though. He is definitively up there as one of the best that we've seen. I would put him right up there on just this first appearance alone. I'd put him right up there with characters like Loki in the MCU. He's fantastic. But while he's fantastic, Florence Pugh is damn near perfect.
So adorable.
I mean, surprise, surprise. Florence Pugh has always been a great actress. She's always been on top of her game, and she always delivers an award-worthy performance. And this movie is, well, I'm not going to say it's maybe award-worthy, but it is really heartfelt. It is really sincere. It's very raw, and it's very emotional. See, in the movie, Yelena is struggling with these constant feelings of self-doubt, feeling like she's never good enough and feeling like she's just sort of stuck in a rut and just doing the same thing day in, day out. And on paper, you might hear that and say, well, that's basically every superhero movie ever. And I would agree with you. The difference is that Thunderbolts doesn't look at this from the perspective of like, oh, the hero has to find some game-changing thing about themselves and find the MacGuffin, find the Deus Ex Machina, find the thing that gives them a reason to keep going. Yelena doesn't really find that. She's just depressed. And now is as good a time as any to get into the core of why I think this movie resonated with me so much, and probably much more so than any other MCU film. Also why it's a very important film right now, and also why it just isn't an actually good film outside of personal subjective reasoning. So on the first note, I'm not going to get into details about it, obviously, because this is not a therapy channel, but
We all have things that we regret.
But I have so many.
Lena, when I look at you, I don't see your mistakes.
We can't stop him alone. No one can.
as somebody who has gone through some very similar feelings to what Yelena talks about in this film. These feelings of like, you've done so much bad. You've done so much to give yourself doubts. You've done so much to look back on your history with this very analytical eye and say, why should I ever be considered to be a good person because of these things that I did? And the fact that this movie is all about the struggles of mental health and the struggles of trying to be at ease with yourself, to be at calm, to give yourself more credence, to actually pick yourself up and do your best to fight through it. But in a lot of ways, you can't fight through it. You can stand back up and you can face it head on and you can square your shoulders and get ready for the fight. But realistically, you can't really get out of it on your own. You need other people. You need a support system, whether they're close to you, just through text or whatever. You need some form of an emotional crutch to help you along. That's why this movie, I think, resonated with me on such a deep foundational level, because that is something I've struggled with for all of my life. I won't pretend and say that I've really gotten much better at it in recent years, but the fact that this isn't used as a MacGuffin, it's not used as again, as a Deus Ex Machina to end the story. It's used as a platform for every single character to explore what mental health can do to you and what self-doubt and self-consternation can really do to a person. And, you know, in some cases like John Walker, it makes you almost egotistical. You almost can't believe that ever happened to you, so you put on a show, you put on a face, and you just kind of deny and deflect and deceive. That's the way you interact with people. You can see people like Yelena who turn it into a very dry sarcasm to sort of, as she says, stuff it all down and pretend like it doesn't exist. Because as long as you can joke about it, as long as you can, you know, throw a barb, as long as you can, you know, bandy back and forth with somebody, are you really actually depressed or are you just bored? And then with characters like, you know, Red Guardian, then you see it with a character like Bob, whose depression and whose mental health torment is so deeply ingrained, it has changed him so much foundationally, he cannot actually conceive of a life or an existence where that is not always a part of him. Going so far as to use drugs, to use substances, to use experimental techniques to just give him some sort of a leg up on his own internal demons. And yet in the end, we see how he's just not able to do that. He has to have the help of other people, and by through them, he is then strong enough. So why is this important today? I don't think it's any secret that we are in a very divisive time in the world. Politically, socially, racially, economically, educationally, we are in a very divisive time. Things are tense. People are upset. People are angry. People are sad. They're depressed. They're really scared of what's going to happen in the future. And we are trying to do this all on our own. We're all trying to fight our own little war. But without banding together, you can't defeat the great darkness. You can't defeat the void. You can't defeat what's plaguing all of us. We need more than that. You need to stand arm in arm, link your elbows, and face it head on. But that's what most movies would tell you. This movie doesn't tell you to link arms and face it head on. It tells you to embrace each other, give each other a giant, warm, tight hug, and remind them that they're not alone. You may not be able to help them. You can't, shoot the metaphorical bullet and end everything right now, but you have to wait it out. You have to just help each other. That's a beautiful sentiment that I frankly was not expecting this film to have. I was expecting it to be kind of more of a standard, like soft espionage heist film, not a commentary, and a very mature, nuanced take, which are words that I don't think I've ever used describing an MCU film, but a very mature and nuanced take on the struggles of mental health, on how everybody reacts to it differently, and everybody sort of finds a way to, to reconnect and then disconnect and confront their own traumas. It's something that I just didn't expect this film to do, and the tone is so serious, and that's something I'll get to here in a second. But why I think this makes this an objectively good film is because it's very aware of what it's doing. It's not preaching to you. It's not telling you there is a magical save to all of this. If anything, it's telling you that in a lot of that, you're probably not going to beat your own trauma. You're probably not going to be able to pull yourself out of this slump, but with good people around you, the load will feel a little bit lighter. And I think that's a film that we really need right now. And I think it's a film that came at a very good time. And I think that alone makes it a good film. It's also just really well written, really well shot, really well directed, and really well paced. This is the best writing we've seen in the MCU, period. I don't mean that in a sarcastic way of like, oh, well, some things have been good, but then this thing happens. I've maintained this throughout the entire MCU. Good writing does not happen very often. I'm not talking about good writing in the sense of like, oh, it moves the story forward and we get from point A to point B. I mean a mixture of good pacing, good dialogue, good interpersonal conflicts, good inciting incidents, good conclusions. Thunderbolts is probably the first one where I feel like it actually nailed that. Winter Soldier, I think, is probably the closest I can pinpoint to be like, this was probably the best example of the MCU taking itself much more seriously and being like, hey, we trust you to do the right thing. We trust you to handle this whole thing by yourself. And it turned out really good. I think films like Infinity War are very good at using writing to move the plot forward and to create an exciting incident, but the dialogue's not very strong. The interpersonal stuff is occasionally good. Thunderbolts just gets it. Which, when it's being written and helmed by the people who made Beef, it's a pretty fucking good show. The cinematography is beautiful, which should come as no surprise, seeing this is the same person that made The Green Knight, which is one of the prettiest films ever shot. It's well edited, it's well paced. The dialogue between characters, the charisma between them, the dynamics between them, the reason that they butt heads, the reason that they sort of make up, the reason that they reconnect, disconnect, all this stuff is really well done. And I told you I'd get back to it, but there's two moments in particular between Yelena and Red Guardian, or Alexei, sorry, that were really heartfelt and really powerful. I don't want to get into specifics because I don't think it's fair, because I think it's better you go and experience it for yourself and you see if you connect with it. And if you don't connect with it, then obviously it wasn't for you. But one moment is just this sort of like desire to get some kind of an answer. This desire to be like, oh, what makes you feel fulfilled? What makes you feel purposeful? What makes you feel like you're not wasting your time on this earth with the time that you're given? And then the other is almost this blatant condemnation of being, I'm not good enough, and I know I'm not good enough. I know I'm not not a good person. Why can't you just tell me I'm not a good person? It's this emotional battering ram to say, like, please just agree with me. Tell me I'm not a good person. Again, I don't want to get into specifics. Just go see the movie. It was really good and it really made me feel something. And I think a lot of that just comes down to the fact that Florence Pugh is an incredible actress and she just understands how to convey emotion, both through tone, through her eyes, through her mannerisms, through her physical stature. She gets it. She really just gets it. And she nails this role. I cannot stress that enough. There's not really much else to say about this film, and I don't want to make this a 30 fucking minute review. If you're seeing people say that they're kind of on the fence with this film, really kind of dig into the details of why they're on the fence of it, because I have a feeling people that are on the fence about this film are on the fence because they went into it with a certain expectation. That expectation was not met, and even if it wasn't meant in a positive way, that still leaves a sort of like underlying disdain that I think just sort of comes out of them and they just have a reason to dislike it. I'm not saying this in a way to be angry at him or disparage him, but Jeremy Jahns is someone that I actually watch semi-frequently, and I don't really understand his take with the Thunderbolts film. The CGI that is in the film is actually pretty damn good. There was one moment that I was like, oh, that was maybe a little bit weird, but like it was one moment out of several CGI shots that were actually really fucking well done, especially by MCU standards. They were really well done. The CG was really good. The reason I wanted to point him out and why I wanted to wrap this up with my last point is the MCU humor. It's the thing that has been memed to death. He's right behind me, isn't he? This film has that, but I was trying to describe it to my brother and I couldn't really quite find the words to really verbalize what I noticed about it, but maybe you'll figure it out better than I did. They make the humor kind of sad. Like the typical sort of like MCU banter, it really just feels more disdainful. It feels more angry, more bitter. It actually is just kind of uncomfortable, but not uncomfortable because it's poorly delivered, uncomfortable because that's how it was meant to be delivered. When characters deliver these barbs or they give sort of these cliched humorous responses, you actually just kind of like, you chuckle, but then you're like, oh, that wasn't really like funny. That person's just like really upset. That person's really hurting. There's one scene that I wanted to get to that I said I did have a couple of nitpicks. There's one scene that goes on, in my opinion, for a little bit too long as sort of like the, hey, we were really serious for a long time there. Hey, let's liven the mood up a little bit. I think it was necessary in a way, but not to the length that it went on for. My other nitpick is that I love Julia Louis-Dreyfus. She is a good secondary antagonist in this film. It just kind of feels like she was just there to move the plot along, which is fine. You do kind of need that character, right? You need to have that antagonist who moves things forward. There was just a couple of moments where I'm like, oh, really? That was like how that particular thing happened? Why is there a timer in the place that's about to get incinerated? Why is there a box that can be opened by just getting bumped into? It was a few things here and there that I was like, that was maybe a little bit overly convenient. But again, the way that it all comes together and it coagulates together is really good and really beautiful and very heartfelt, that I kind of just am willing to forgive those few things. It was just a standard movie cliche where I'm like, oh, you were doing such a good job of not being a cliche, and then you did the really cliche thing, like, okay, that was kind of weird. So what else is there to say about Thunderbolts? Nothing really. I'm not going to say we're so back, because I think we need to wait to see Fantastic Four to know, are we back? But what I will tell you, if Thunderbolts is any indication, I think we are back. I really do. I've said it before, and I don't know if I've said it on this channel, so if I haven't said it on this channel, this is your first time hearing it. I've maintained this since WandaVision, that I believed almost every film until Thunderbolts, when that was announced, that every single film was just the glorified finale to their show counterparts. Brave New World is the official finale to the Falcon Winter Soldier show. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is the glorified finale to WandaVision. Deadpool and Wolverine, in a lot of ways, is the finale to Loki. These films were all made, in my opinion, a while ago. They were reshot a ton, but I think they were made a long time ago. But when I saw Thunderbolts and I saw who was connected to it, I saw who was cast, and I saw who was writing, who was directing, who was shooting, who was editing, I said it years ago at this point. That's when the MCU was going to turn around. Everything between then was just sort of like, if this sticks, it sticks, but let's be honest, it probably won't. And yeah, it sucks that we had to go through it, but if I am correct, and I think that I am, I do believe we are back. Go see Thunderbolts. I'm not going to say you won't regret it, but I think if you go into it with the right intentions, and if you go into it allowing yourself to really absorb its message and really absorb its tone, you will be pleasantly surprised. It's very serious, it's very grim, it knows when to be funny, genuinely funny, and it knows when to be very, very serious. And I think it nails it every single time. Oh, and the soundtrack, chef's kiss. Anyways, that's it all for me. Go see Thunderbolts.